All right, so students, I'm really excited to host our first ever student forum for our superintendent finalist search. So let's welcome all of our school board members, our dignitaries, and our two candidates today with a big round of applause. So what you need to know is this is being streamed all around the Anchorage School District, and it will probably be on the news tonight, so we need to make sure we're the best audience possible. So I know that we have some Wolverine pride in this room and that we can do that. So make sure your phone is on silent, that in between questions that you're not talking to your neighbor, and that you're just being an all-around good audience member during our forum today. So you are allowed to have your phone out at this event because you will be tweeting in questions if you would like to. So that's the whole point of the event. So to start ourselves off today, we're going to start with the color guard and national anthem. So please rise and remove your headgear.
This summer, 20-year-old Preston Pollard.
All right, thanks everybody. Please be seated. So for students in the audience, you know who I am. I'm Dr. Johnson, the principal here at South High School, but there's people tuning in all around the district, so they need to know who I am. So for those of you that are tuning in online, welcome to our student forum for our superintendent finalist search. Today we have a student from South High School who's going to MC our event that I'm excited to introduce. He is our valedictorian for the class of 2016. He's a drama debate forensics extraordinaire and just an all-around really nice guy. So please welcome our senior Jack Sexauer to the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Good morning, and welcome all South Anchorage High School students, faculty, and guests in attendance today. Additionally, welcome to all classrooms and individuals across the Anchorage School District who are viewing this live. I would like to take a moment to thank all of those individuals who were involved in making this event a possibility. First, thank you to Dr. Johnson and the rest of the administration here at South for allowing us to open up our school to host this event. Secondly, thank you to both of the superintendent candidates in attendance today who took time out of their extremely busy schedules to be with us. Thirdly, thank you to the electronic communications class for live streaming this event. And finally, Thank you to Lee Butterfield, who coordinated this event and is in charge of the electronic communications class. As many of you know, Superintendent Ed Graff's contract expired March 18th and will not be renewed for the coming year. While Mr. Graff will stay in his position through June 30th, a replacement must be appointed for the upcoming school year. This forum is the first opportunity for students, faculty, and other individuals with a stake in the Anchorage School District to learn about the candidates who may replace Mr. Graff as superintendent. It is an opportunity for all people to become informed and involved in the superintendent selection process. If you have a question which you would like to have asked to one of the candidates, please tweet your question at SAHSofficial with the hashtag ASD Supersearch. Again, that is at SAHSofficial with hashtag ASD Supersearch. 5 questions will be selected from the Twitter feed to ask each candidate. Along with your question and hashtag, please tell us the school you're tweeting from so we can give you and your school due credit. Before we begin the official forum, I would like to introduce an exemplary individual. He's a professional skateboarder, an international youth speaker, was a host on the Oprah Network, and has worked with youth for over a decade to help them to discover their passions and drive. It is my privilege to introduce Preston Pollard, who is going to talk with us on stage, but first, let's watch this video. And so please join me in welcoming Preston Pollard to the stage.
All the microphones are off. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Well, I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm excited. I just want to thank Mr. Butterfield for inviting me. He just seen me at Grad Nation. He asked me to come speak. I said, "Really, me? Are you serious?" And I'm very excited. And I just first want to just give a round of applause for Mr. Butterfield, the superintendents for today. Let's just, yeah. And also, I have some other shout outs too, because when I was younger, I was a crazy kid. I was hyper and everything. And I want to just thank Miss LZ over at Bartlett. She was awesome. She worked with me hands on. Tim Andrews at Creekside. Mr. Bunton. Mr. Sparkman, he was over at KCC, and I just want to give those teachers just another round of applause because they helped me so much. Well, we're about to have some fun. We're about to have some fun because when I get on the floor, I like to have some fun. Y'all like to have fun? Okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. Well, first, before I get started, I love this quote by Mark Twain, and he says, "The 2 most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you discover why." The day you were born and the day you discover why. Your why is so important. What is your why? Do you know what you're called to do? Do you know your purpose? Because I believe when you can find your purpose, things start to change. You start to walk different. You be like, I know my purpose. I know my purpose. When you find out what you're meant to do, something begins to happen. I grew up right here in Anchorage, and as a kid, I had dreams, big dreams. But I'm going to be real with y'all. I tried basketball, I tried soccer, and I was horrible. They called me Butterfingers, making fun of me and doing things. But one day after getting out of school, I discovered skateboarding. I noticed some kids down the street, and I walked over to them, and I asked them if I can try their board. And I was a little hesitant. I was nervous, and they passed out the board right in front of me. I jump on it, and as soon as I get on the board, I just felt a sense of freedom. You know, in school, it was kind of tough for me. I wasn't the smartest kid. I wasn't the best. To be honest, I would get spanked in school because I was crazy, okay? I was hyper, ADD. Anybody hyper here? Yeah, I got some people. Be honest. I was extremely hyper. I was so hyper and I couldn't stay focused. They said, well, Preston has to be put in special ed classes. And at first, I was a little nervous about the whole process of, are people going to make fun of me or what's going to happen? But you know what? I had to turn that whole process around. I had to say, you know what? I am special in a positive way. Because I think a lot of times we can place a negative mindset. I believe we also live in a world where everything is quick, right? We like everything fast. And how many of you ever heard of the new Tesla car? I love those cars. They're amazing. I actually got to drive one in California, and it was actually extremely scary. The reason why is because once you get in the car, it can actually drive itself. But I wanted to ask you, are you living on autopilot? Because I think a lot of people live on autopilot. They just let people drive them. You hear negativity, so you believe negativity. You hear people saying you're never going to be anybody, you're never going to do anything, and you start to follow this path. And when I was younger, people said a lot of different things. They said, "You're black, why are you skateboarding?" Oh my goodness. And I heard so many things, but I had to adapt a positive mindset. Positive mindset. I think a lot of times we can go through school, we can get the education, we can have more degrees than a thermometer, but we don't have a positive mental attitude. So where is your attitude at? How do you wake up? What do you visualize for yourself? Because to be honest, if you don't wake up with a positive mental attitude, this world is going to bring you down. So positive mental, I know some people who will wake up and it could be a perfect, beautiful, just a blue sky day, and they're like, "Ooh, I don't even like the color blue." Like, oh my goodness, so what do you like? But I had to learn how to adapt a positive mental attitude for my career and the things that I do. After I got involved with skateboarding, things began to change. Doors started to open up. I had to begin to learn to step out of my comfort zone. And I wanted to ask you, are you staying in your comfort zone? Because if you are, I would really encourage you to get out of your comfort zone, to meet somebody new for the first time, to do something you've never done before. And I believe once you do that, you're going to be so inspired to do something different in your life. And another thing that I want to give you guys, and remember, this is like what DJ Khaled would say, major keys, okay? This is major keys for success. And I know y'all be looking at Snapchat. Y'all know what time it is. Another thing that I'm going to give you guys that's a really big key is enthusiasm. I'm telling you, so we went to Texas Roadhouse. My grandpa's birthday was yesterday. He's 92. Amazing. Yes. And anyhow, we were eating and whatnot, and hopefully I'm good on time. We were eating, and the waiter, however, he was the most amazing waiter ever. I'm so serious. I mean, we was joking around with us, but his enthusiasm was so amazing. I mean, we tipped him double. He was so amazing. Your enthusiasm with life is a major key to success, whatever it is that you do. Have some in you. Smile. I want y'all to smile right now. Let me see what y'all can smile. Let me see it. Let me see y'all smile. Let me see. Oh, look at them white teeth. There we go. Oh, I see one dude stick his tongue out at me. Hey, man, what's up, man? Don't kiss me, though. I'm watching you. Enthusiasm is a major key. I don't think a lot of people think how important it is. But in my career, this helped me so much to just learn how to be filled up with joy and learn how to be happy even though things don't go right. People backstab you, you feel rejected, you feel depressed, but you got to just say, hey, today's going to be a great day. Another thing that I'm going to give you guys, another major key is service, helping one another. A lot of people, they want to be holding on to stuff. They don't want to share, and they want to act like they know it all, and they have all this, but I just want to encourage you and challenge you guys to help somebody in need, regardless of their color, regardless of what they have, regardless of what they can do for you, to help somebody, because that has changed my life in such a huge way. It has opened doors, huge doors, from not only skateboarding, but TV hosting, to traveling around the world, to hosting on the Oprah Network. Just amazing opportunities have opened. So as I'm looking at you guys, I'm not looking at you guys as, you know, as people would say, the future. I'm looking at you guys as the present, as the now. And as we're going to be hearing from the superintendents, this is about you guys. This is about your guys' future. So again, I want to challenge you guys to be motivated, to be inspired, to listen, to read, to exercise, keep active, and most importantly, never give up. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Preston. So now we're going to move on to the actual forum. And first, I'm going to go over the format. Each candidate will come on stage individually, where they will be asked a series of questions. They will have 1 minute to respond to each question with a 30-second grace period before we will have to move on to the next question. There will be 5 questions drafted by the students at South. There will be 2 questions drafted by the faculty at South. And finally, there will be 5 questions from our Twitter feed. Now let's meet the candidates. Our first candidate is the current interim dean of the University of Alaska Fairbanks School of Education. Please welcome Mr. Steve Atwater to the stage. And please remember to tweet any questions you have to @SAHSofficial, #ASD Supersearch to be asked to Dr. Atwater. Now let's get started with the student prepared questions. The first question is, with the state possibly seeing more budget cuts for education, how do you see that affecting us as students along with school sports and extracurricular activities?
Thank you. First of all, welcome everybody. It's really good to see you. Could I have a quick show of hands of how many students in here are graduating? All right, congratulations, you guys. I know I'm off task right here, but it's really important that you tell your parents, your guardians, or whoever it is that's raising you that you love them, because the fact that you're graduating is really intense for them too, so make sure you do that. With regard to money, obviously the state, as you're probably following, is in a very difficult time, and the funding for education is at a critical place, because we know that we're not going to see a new infusion of revenue probably for a while. And so as you stretch that rubber band tighter and tighter, is what we're doing right now. We're stretching it tighter and tighter, trying to offer that same level of service to the students, same level of service across all of our system. How do you keep it going without things breaking and falling to the side? And the only way you can do that is if you have fewer people working here. And that's a hard conversation, because when you look at a school district, almost all the money goes to pay people who work here. And so the only way that you can make do with less money is to have fewer people working. And so there's 2 ways to approach that. One of the ways to approach that is to just increase your class size. You have fewer people and you put more people into your school's classes. And right now you guys probably have classes of 28, 30 kids, something like that. But if you keep going with what the model's designed to do, those going to high school here in the future will have classes of 40 kids. In Los Angeles, when the recession hit in 2008, they went to 45 kids in a classroom. Try and think about a learning environment with 45 kids in a classroom. It doesn't work. And so what I'm proposing is that we put a greater emphasis on learning through technology. And so the primary delivery of instruction comes through technology as a way to free up teachers and not depend on teachers so heavily. So there's 2 ways you can go. 1, you can have fewer teachers and stuff more kids into a classroom. Or 2, you can have fewer teachers but utilize them in a different way and with a greater dependence on technology. And I'm convinced that's the better way to go. So with regard to the second part of your question, okay, I'm running out of time.
That's all the time that we have,
okay.
Unfortunately.
There was with sports.
All right. Thank you, though. Let's move on to the next question. Recently, we've seen curriculum and graduation requirements change, shifting classes students must take during high school. Do you see any other changes in the future? If so, what would you change and why?
Well, I certainly see, if you look ahead, and those of you that are 18 are looking ahead very quickly right now, is that there's going to be a morphing of what's required of high school students. I think there'll be a greater emphasis placed on preparation in technology, and there already is. I think that'll increase. But I also see a changing in the sciences. I think if you look at the next generation science standards that are now in place, you'll see what's more of a morphing of the content of the sciences than you see currently. So rather than in 10th grade you take chemistry for a year, or in 11th grade you can take chemistry for a year, I see the sciences changing in a way which is more practical in the real world, is that there's a combination. Because when you take physics as a senior, why do you wait to a senior to take physics? Okay, sometimes because maybe you need math for it. But really, when you take earth science as a freshman, there's a lot of physics involved with earth science. Why can't you combine the two? When you take biology, why are you not taking chemistry or pieces of chemistry at the same time? So that's a change that I see coming. I see a changing in the requirements. Not that you have less studies, but there'll be a morphing it, and also see a greater emphasis placed on technology preparation. With that said, I think there's the other piece that will come at us, and when you talk to business leaders and business community, it's really critical that the people are able to work well together, and so that we'll design learning environments so that people work well together.
All right, thank you. The next question is, in the Anchorage School District, we have a lot of students that like to be involved not only in academics and extracurricular activities, but also with school administration. But sometimes we have issues getting our voices heard. As superintendent, how would you ensure that the voices of the students would be heard?
Well, most definitely each school would have a student government, of course, and they would be the venue for the students to speak through that venue to the superintendent. I agree with that. Obviously on the school board you have a superintendent, a student representative, and that would be a key piece to have. But I think the open communication within your system, each system would have its own government, you'd speak through them, and they would have an audience with the superintendent, so I would go in that way.
All right, thank you. What sets you apart from former ASD superintendents, and what do you plan on doing differently?
Well, I think the thing that sets me apart, and I have a great respect for Mr. Graff, he's a friend of mine, is that I think I'm more forward-thinking than previous ones are. The system that you're living in right now for school is ending. Okay? It's not going to be here in 10 years. I'm convinced of that. The traditional system of students picking up 45 minutes, going 45 minutes, 45 minutes, that's a system that's ending. It's already ending in the country. If you go across the country, there's places where it's happening already. And so if we're going to wait, it's going to happen to us anyway. So that's the biggest piece that I see. I bring a vision of moving this district to a place where it's going to end up anyway. But if you wait and end up there, then you're going to be reacting. And whenever you're reacting, you're in a position of weakness. You should always be active and proactive in terms of that. So that's what I see happening.
All right, thank you. There are 4 more school years left until Destination 2020 is supposed to reach the goal of a graduation rate of 90%. As superintendent, how would you encourage high schoolers to stay in school and continue improving our graduation rate?
Okay, the reason why kids stop going to school and drop out, and here at South you have a really low dropout rate, I'm really proud of that, but the reason they drop out is mostly they start to lose interest or it becomes a hopeless task. They're too far behind. And that's because in order to earn a credit, you have to spend that full year, and it just becomes an overwhelming piece. I'm just going to quit. So I think if you can break up your coursework in a way that you can attain bits of it in pieces rather than having to wait the full year to get that credit is one way to approach it. The other way is that the learning is designed in a really accelerated way as well as a realistic way. There's an application to what you're learning. So when the content is presented to you, every time you learn something, you should be asking, why should I know this? Okay, there should be an application. There should be a piece of it that you feel that will help you understand why it's worth knowing. And the more you can apply your learning, the more you can take your learning and apply it into a place, I think the more exciting school will be, and then kids will be stimulated and excited about going to school and will graduate.
All right, thank you. Now we're moving on to our faculty questions. First, how do you plan to make sure our children continue to get a good education in these challenging economic times?
Yeah, and that goes back to my first answer, and that is that there's no way around it, is that this tension that's existing right now with the finances is due to the fact that we have people working, and we can't afford to keep everybody working, so we have to have fewer people working. And so how do you do that? And like I said, you don't want to just continue to add students into the class size. So I think you change the model of delivery with a greater emphasis on getting digital content as a way to get your basic core delivery. It doesn't mean that teachers are not playing an important role. They're very critical, but they're beginning to shift in terms of what the role they play. And so that would be the biggest way to address the financial piece. And so right now in an Anchorage School District, there's 3,300 teachers, okay? Every year, give or take a percent or two, about 10% of those teachers decide that they're not going to come back to work here. Okay, they either retire or they decide they're going to do something else. So that's 330 teachers that this year are deciding not to work for the school district anymore. Rather than chasing teachers, which is really hard to do right now if you're finding there's an intense shortage, rather than trying to replace all 330, I would instead place a greater emphasis on technology and have the teachers that we do bring in play a different role. So that's how I'd address the finances.
All right, thank you.
And that's cheaper to go that way, by the way.
And our second faculty question is, how will you foster and support innovation in the classrooms of the Anchorage School District?
Yeah, there's 2 ways to approach a school district, and I said this earlier at Rabbit Creek, and one is compliance, where there's an authoritarian type of relationship where you're in a state of complying, you have to do this, you have to do this. The other one is accountability, where you're giving a school the autonomy to do what's best, but they're accountable. You're not letting them just do whatever they want to do. They're completely accountable for what they're doing, but you allow the innovation at the local level. I strongly believe that the principal and teachers inside of a school should have the autonomy to make local decisions to attend to different pieces that are needed to attend to. It's ridiculous if Anchorage tries to treat itself in a uniform way. Your high school right here is very different from East, very different from Bartlett, different from West, maybe not so different from Service, but each of these are unique places that have to have their own identity. And so that's my big piece for innovation. Once you allow that kind of relationship with the district, it fosters innovation.
All right, thank you. Do we have the Twitter questions prepared? Just give us one moment here while we get these out on stage.
I have questions for you guys, and I'll ask these if I'm your superintendent. I need 3 things from you. What's good about school, what's bad about school, and what would you change? So if I'm here in September, I'm going to ask you that, so think about that. You don't have to answer it now, but think about that. What's good, what's bad, and what would you change?
All right, we have 3 questions prepared for you. First, what opportunities will you bring to the Anchorage School District?
I think what I mentioned before about increased interest with technology, I think the sciences, I would make some change there. I would have definitely more technology inside the schools with regard to preparation for the world of work. How many kids are taking coding right now? Okay, I see one hand, right? That's an intricate part of our future. There should be way more people doing that. So those are the type of things I'd be for.
How will budget cuts in the future affect fine arts specifically?
I didn't hear the fine arts.
Fine arts, yes.
Right. Typically, when you cut your budget, you try and save your core delivery, your English teacher, your math teacher. And what often gets pushed to the side are the things on the periphery, right? The music, the art, whatever that will be. And that's a tragic mistake because, as you well know, the music, arts are critical for us and also critical for your brain development. Your brains are developing until you hit the age of as late as 30. Okay? My brain's done. Okay? Your brains are growing. And so until they're age 30, you're growing. And music and the arts are critical for that. And so I would protect them at all costs. And the only way to do that is what I've been describing, is to have fewer teachers because you have a greater dependence or interaction with technology.
All right. And on a similar note, what are your future plans for world language classes?
Well, I strongly believe that world languages are critical. I think that we live, obviously, in an international world. I learned French when I was a kid, and obviously that's not immediate to me right now. But the learning of a language also helps you really understand English very well, and that's another piece that people don't always recognize, is that your command of English is enhanced by the acquisition of a second language. So I think that's a key piece. So I would certainly encourage it and want to support world languages. I think they're a critical part of what we offer our students, and as well as the international life that we'll be leading.
All right. Well, those are all the questions that we have, but do you have any concluding thoughts or philosophies or anything like that you'd like to share with the student body here at South and our viewers at home? You can take a couple minutes for this.
No, thanks. Yeah, no, it's just really good to see you guys, and I appreciate where you're at. You're at a really critical point in your life. Those of you that are graduating, again, congratulations. This is a very exciting time. It's a time that you'll never forget. Walking across the stage as a senior in high school, getting your diploma is really very special. But life is a journey, and I encourage you all to think in terms of not necessarily identifying your destination now. I don't think that's your greatest stress that you need to deal with, but also to think in terms of preparing yourself for what will likely be a variety of destinations. Most of the students that are graduating now approach the workplace with the idea that they're going to do several things, and I know that you'll be doing the same thing. Some of you will lock into a single career, but most of you will do a variety of things. With that in mind, it's important that as high school students you maintain as many doors open as you can. I don't feel that you have to necessarily play your card on one career in high school. I also feel that it's important that you test the market and push yourself as well as you can in terms of getting exposure to what's out there with career pathways that way. So I'm excited to be an applicant and a finalist for the superintendent. I know that I bring a breadth of experience. I've been in Alaska for 35 years, and I've been in a variety of places, and I think I have a really good understanding of what it takes. Working with kids on the Kenai and then out in Lake and Penn in a rural district really gave me great insights into what's necessary and what's needed for high school kids as well as all kids. And it's not, in my mind, what we're doing now. I think we have to morph it away from the traditional method of teacher stands and delivers the instruction. You write down the notes, go home and do the homework. There has to be a better way, and there is a better way. And so I look forward to implementing that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
I would now like to invite our second candidate to the stage. She is the current superintendent of the Mat-Su Borough School District. Please welcome Dr. Dina Paramo. All right. Let's start with the student-prepared questions. First, with the state possibly seeing more budget cuts for education, how do you see that affecting us as students, along with school sports and extracurricular activities?
Hello? It's me. Just kidding. For those who are the older folks in the room, that's Adele. So I just wanted to let you know that you're discussing the economics, correct? I have a strong belief that we cannot use our economic state. I'm sure many of you students come from all different levels of wealth, come to the same place to learn, and that I don't see that, although economics are real to us in our state with oil at the price it is, for me it's not a barrier, or it's not going to be the biggest barrier to education for youth. We can do things differently, we can find efficiencies, but what we need to do is continue to focus on students and their learning. And similar to the candidate that just spoke, there are efficiencies that can be built into the manner in which we deliver curriculum, or the manner in which we schedule our days, or work with staff at all different levels. And for me, it's driven by what students need and where they are, which is certainly different from the manner in which I went to school. I graduated in 1987, and so that was quite a long time ago. And what we need to do as administration and principals and people who actually receive the funds to provide education to you is to listen, find out what you need, and make a plan of action. But in no way would I relate what we can do as lesser or poorer depending on our economy. We can't do it. You only have one high school experience. You only have one life here with us, and we're going to work to make it the best.
All right. Thank you. Our second question. Recently, we've seen curriculum and graduation requirements change, shifting classes students must take during high school. Do you see any other changes in the future? If so, what would you change and why?
Certainly change is inevitable, and I believe that the folks in the audience are much more used to it than those of us that have graduated and have left. We seem to like doing the same things. We have the same careers all our lives generally. Through millennials and now the generation, I believe you're the Z generation, have changes, and changes are in store. And some people tell me, I can't imagine staying in one job for the rest of my life. But what we need to do is match schools in the 21st century for the 21st century. It's not, actually, I love the guest speaker today who said, you know, the future isn't off, the future is right now, and you're in it. And so schools do need to adjust and make the changes necessary in the manner in which students select courses, share courses, move to other high schools. The world is technically flat to you. You have friends, 450 friends from around this district, probably that are streaming right now, that you connect with. We can use those connections that you already have to build capacity in the learning that needs to happen, but I'm not afraid of change.
All right, thank you. Our next question. In the Anchorage School District, we have a lot of students that like to be involved not only in academics and extracurricular activities, but also with school administration, but sometimes we have issues getting our voices heard. As superintendent, how would you ensure that the voices of the students would be heard?
First of all, that starts with leadership and building capacity in the folks that I work with to deliver the kind of customer service that needs to happen in schools. My customers really, I would say, are your principals. I need to be sure that, your principal, Dr. Johnson, is set up to be as successful as she can be. And part of that is being in tune with the students in which she works every day. Same thing with the adults. We can talk about the kinds of models you'd like to see with, you're tweeting right now, so you can give all the feedback you want. But what has to happen on the other side is that people have to take time to listen and learn about what's happening in our schools and how to make them better. And that starts with leadership.
All right, thank you. What sets you apart from former ASD superintendents, and what do you plan on doing differently in the future?
Well, the last two, I'm a lot shorter than they are, and I'm female, so that's a good difference. I would say that I bring a lot of energy. Just so you know, I have, if you're a senior, I have a student that's a senior. I'm quite familiar with this school because she's active in volleyball and soccer. And yes, South has beaten Wasilla every time they've come together, as well as had a boyfriend in hockey. So yes, South has beaten Wasilla hockey. So I actually go to a lot of your games and things, but what was the question again?
What sets you apart from former ASD superintendents?
That's what sets me apart. I'm active with kids. I see kids. I talk to kids and understand where you are, besides the obvious, of course.
All right, thank you. There are 4 more school years left until Destination 2020 is supposed to reach the goal of a graduation rate of 90%. As superintendent, how would you encourage high schoolers to stay in school and continue improving graduation rates?
Sure. What was mentioned earlier, I agree with, in setting up systems that make it possible. When kids do get behind, sometimes it is an insurmountable task to get ahead. And the Gallup research poll shared some information in regard to school success and what makes school success. And you might think, I learned how to read, I learned how to, compute, great teachers, this and that. But actually the number one indicator of school success was hope, that someone had hope in a student. And so while we would use technology and understanding about how students learn and learning about outcomes, that seat time sometimes isn't the only key to getting credit for a class. We also need to create relationships with students. I firmly believe that, sometimes students don't care what you know until they know that you care. And part of it is having the hope for their future, that they can do it. Many students, it's the matter of a health concern or a broken leg that sets them apart, out of school for 3 weeks. And with the amount of work piling on, they just don't see a future. Whether that be in this school or a school across town. So it's up to our schools to create places where students want to be, to compel them to learn and to work with them.
Thank you. Now on to the staff questions. First, how do you plan to make sure our children continue to get a good education in these challenging economic times?
You just work your tail off, but I think it's a great education, and I think we have the possibility to do greatness, not just good. I don't think we just owe our kids good. We want to make it great. But what we need to do is take a look at where the cost is in our systems and find out where it is that we can find efficiencies. And certainly some of these are, a high school such as this is a huge comprehensive high school. And you probably have many, many classes, and I know your technology class is state of the art. I saw that actually featured on the news. But do other schools also have that? Sometimes they might not. This is a newer building. They might not have the capital improvements and investment made into the buildings because they were older. So why recreating programs over and over again? And just so you know, one of the most expensive programs in high school is welding, believe it or not, because it's expensive to have welders and things like that, and the safety. You can only have a few kids. So I believe that because students get each other and the world is flat to them, that we can create efficiencies in the district, that not every school has to have every class, but that students are allowed to freely move and to take classes when available at other schools. We can even bus them in the middle of the day, drive their cars. You have something like that in the King Career Center where you choose to go, but what about if there was a class at Service right down the road for which you wanted to take? Why couldn't we figure out how to allow students to take the courses in which they need? Those types of efficiencies will, in the end, keep our student programs at the highest level while working in a time of economic uncertainty.
Thank you. And finally, how will you foster and support innovation in the classrooms of the Anchorage School District?
Well, we need to make sure that we have the capacity in order to do the things that students like to do. I remember years ago a student told me, man, Ms. Paramo, when I come into the classroom, I'm 65 miles an hour, and I go into a classroom and it's 35 miles an hour. We need to understand how kids learn. We need to have the capacity to do that. But also, a lot of it is that our kids are coming in much more advanced than our staff. And staff want to learn, but it's a time of, do they have the right materials in the class to make those types of energized 21st century learning happen? So we need to provide staff the training and staff the needs, make sure the speed of the internet is up and running. And I certainly believe that we need to keep up with, generally we're keeping up with kids. We don't ban technology, cell phones, things like that. I'm a true believer in teaching kids to use technology for good, not evil.
All right, thank you. And now on to our 3 Twitter questions. First, how will you address substance abuse in the Anchorage School District?
Initially, I would take a look at where you are. So study the data, listen to the student groups. There's many student groups on campus and also faith-based communities and other agencies, because substance abuse is not a single unit to a single school. It's really a community-wide issue. And so we would use a group of people to assist and help solving. But listening to students in regard to when it starts, where it happens, what happens. Students should not have to be influenced by drugs and alcohol when they come onto campus. They should be free to learn. But yet, in our society, we know that there's some kids that are wounded and are struggling with drugs and alcohol. So we need to find a way to assist them by using community resources, using us all, different schools, whether it's kids in school, out of school, agencies, to assist, to help us get better.
Thank you. Next is, in what ways would you help to further STEM careers and education inside of the Anchorage School District?
Further STEM careers? Mm-hmm. Some programs such as the National Math and Science Initiative encourage students to gain capacity and knowledge and competencies in science, in mathematics, obviously, and it's really a training for their teachers to train them in some of the technology for which they can see into the future and take a look at some of the jobs that are out there. Keeping it basically uses professionals and other teachers to keep teachers current. We would certainly want to offer the types of courses in which students need. Coding is huge. Just recently, knowing that, I partnered with a telco company to put a coding academy into a middle school where every single student had the availability to take coding their 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years. Everything from HTML to learning how to use 3D printers, graphics, Minecraft, all types of things. Because no matter what your future is, if you're going to be the one designing the code or something new, or the one, shoot, our pop machines out there, you need to probably code them to fix them. So no matter what your job is going to be, you need to understand coding, which is huge moving into the future. 10 of the top 25 jobs now are technological job positions open in the United States.
All right, thank you. And your final question, what are your thoughts on starting school later in the day?
What do you think? Now, just think, if you go later, you stay later. I actually went to a high school that was from 9 to 4, so we were almost the opposite of Alaska. I do believe that students' best learning time is later, and sometimes it's connected, most times it's connected to transportation. So if we can figure out the transportation issue, because you stagger your start between, when you have 47,000 kids in a district, you stagger between high school, middle school, and elementary school. One way in which we were able to mitigate not totally the early issue is to just move it for a couple of years 15 minutes 10 minutes at a time each year, and then it didn't seem like such a surprise to the community and everyone else. And it still worked with sports and athletics. We are not in a time zone of ourselves, if you will, in a little bubble, that you do participate with students from around the state in many different capacities. So I think that we should use the research and understand that kids are nocturnal and they like to stay up late and don't really appreciate waking up too early. But sometimes the change is even going to be a bigger issue than just moving it. And so I've actually did that in Matsu. We moved it 15 minutes at a time.
All right, thank you. Those are all the questions we have for you, but do you have any closing thoughts for the student body and our viewers, or personal philosophies?
No, I just hope you all find happiness in the world. It is every student in our state deserves an amazing life. And you come to us each day, your parents give you to us, you know, you're their babies, and you come and spend 6.5 hours with us every day, and we need to make those learning experiences work for you. I do believe students need to be the hardest workers in the system, but the system needs to work for you. And I'm here to do that. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And that concludes our Superintendent Candidate Forum. Thank you again to our guest speaker, Preston, the candidates, the South Anchorage High School administration, Mr. Butterfield and the electronic communications class, and all of you in attendance and watching online. I'm still talking. You can sit down. We live in a fantastic time in which we, not just as students or teachers, but as people, are empowered by our technology and those around us to rise up, and not only to become informed, but also to become a living piece of the political process. We all have the opportunity to make our voices heard and to actively strive for a better tomorrow for ourselves and the generations which follow. In all likelihood, the survival of the world doesn't rest on the outcome of this superintendent search, but its outcome will still have profound effects on the education of thousands of youth, their families, and the communities built around them. So thank you all for taking the time to participate in this forum, and I hope you can take what you have heard today to better inform yourself and those around you so that we, as a community, can secure a bright future for ourselves and the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you, and everyone have a pleasant day. There are some note cards up front which you can fill out with additional questions for the superintendent candidates or thoughts on the candidates. You can also go online to the ASD superintendent candidate search to fill out your feedback as well. Thank you very much.